Hey everybody, it's Nick from Hi-Fi for All, back with another build series video. And tonight we are going to be building the HFA Dahlia headband assembly. It's a pretty exciting moment because once we get the headband assembly finished and built, we get to pull the two ear cups together, make the headphone, and see it in all its completed glory. So I hope this video is informative and maybe entertaining. And yeah, let's get into it. All right, so here we are at the bench, getting prepared to make the headband assembly for the Dahlia headphone. We've got some parts here, and we're gonna go from scratch. We're gonna go from just the parts to make the completed thing. So let's take a look at what we need first. We need the parts that were multi-jet fusion, 3D printed here. We've got a strap, which is really nice. We've got a metal headband as well, so we're gonna use that. We've got some heat set inserts, we've got strap screws, a sleeve bearing, and we've got some M4 set screws. And so now that we've got all the parts ready to go, let's start with this piece. And so this piece is I call it the rod slider because it has the sleeve bearing, and that's going to go over the yoke rod. And so yeah, let's start with this. And the first thing that I usually do is I clean this up because it comes from a multi-jet fusion bed, which is filled with powder, and then during post-processing they tumble these parts to remove the excess powder that's in there. But what I'm going to do is, I know there's some extra powder in here that they're not able to get because it's such a thin opening, so I'm going to go ahead and actually start to clean this part out before we use it for our assembly. So the way I do this, I just take a little knife right here, a little hobby knife, scalpel, whatever, and then I'm just digging through to find some excess powder from the part. I know there's going to be some in here because we don't want that in our final assembly. We want to make sure it's nice and clean so that when you get it, you're not going to have nylon powder just falling out of here. And you can actually see some of the powder come out when I dump it out. It's going to be in my hand, so we're going to make sure we get all of that excess powder out of there so that it's nice and clean. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm going to do the other one now. I'm just going to move this out of the way. Sometimes this stuff has a little of extra powder, sometimes there's a lot, so it really depends on the luck of the draw, really. You know, how well they did the post-processing and how much I have to do. So let's see. Sometimes a lot comes out. That's not too bad though. Let's do a little more. Okay. All right. That should be good. Yeah, I definitely saw some come out that time. Okay. That should be good. At this point, what I'm going to do next is, now that we've loosened up some of that excess powder and we've cleared that space, I'm going to hit this thing with the X Power. You remember this thing? The X Power? It's a little blower. I'm just going to blow these parts out and make sure that they're super, super clean. So I'm going to do that off camera. It's going to get really loud, so just hold on a second. That's one. And that's two. All right, thank you, X Power. It's so handy. Those look pretty clean to me. Just visually, I'm gonna inspect them just to make sure they look really nice. There's a little spot right there. I'm not sure. I'm just gonna see if I can hit that. I think it's just some powder that's kind of stuck on there. All right, I think I got it. Sweet. Nice. All right. Okay, we're good. All right, so here's our clean parts, and the next thing I'm going to do is, sometimes these parts don't quite line up or match in terms of the finish, and you can see that there's like a different level of sheen on the surface where these strap plates are actually a little shinier than these rod sliders. And so I'm just going to show you the difference in that sheen. You can kind of see in the light that this part is a little more shiny. So in that scenario, and this doesn't happen with every part and every batch, but sometimes this does come out that way, depending on the post-processing and how long it was in the barrel for tumbling or whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use a little scour pad, and I'm just going to hit it, really lightly hit this thing and just give it a nice little brushing. And what that's going to do is it's going to just knock the sheen down just a little bit, and it's going to help match up the parts, and so that from a finishing standpoint they look like they are going to fit a little better aesthetically. It's not really necessary to do this, and if you're a Dahlia owner and you find that maybe the level of finishing doesn't quite match perfectly, you can actually just go ahead and do this at home too. It's pretty easy to do. You just take like one of these little, you could use a Scotch-Brite pad or really just any kind of scour pad, and just just hit it really lightly. You don't have to be too rough with it, but just enough to take off some of that sheen. We're almost there already. So yeah, not a long, hard process, but now we're looking like we're in better shape. You can see that. I think we're good there, honestly. I mean, if you compare it with the part that hasn't been brushed yet, you can see there's already a difference. I might hit a little bit longer just to give it a little extra love here. Just really lightly finish this up. Okay, this is starting to look pretty much perfect. All right, let's take a look. And I just put these side by side, and yeah, that looks really nice. That's beautiful. So the finishing is very, very close enough for me, and hopefully for you. I'm going to do the left strap plate as well. So we're just going to lightly brush this out. Give it a real nice finish. Okay. It's kind of meditative when you're just sitting here doing this, because it's not a lot of effort, but it's just kind of a nice way to decompress from the day. Maybe you had a busy day and there's a lot going on, especially with Black Friday, but yeah, it's just really chill to just be able to do something, a really simple task, but do it. Oop. I say that as I drop it, but yeah, just clean this up so it looks really nice. Make something you can be proud of. I hope that you all take some time out of your day to make something, maybe for yourself or for somebody else, and something that you can really be happy with and proud of. So let's take a look. That's looking beautiful. So let's see. So if you take a look at those two pieces, they look like they belong together. That's nice. I'm pretty happy with that. And so what we're going to do next, now that we've got the pieces pretty well finished and prepared for assembly, the next step, I'm going to put the strap plates aside for now. And what we're going to do now is we're going to actually start to assemble the rod slider using the heat set inserts. I'm going to zoom in just so you can really get a close look at this. It might be easier to see what's going on here. Okay, so I'm gonna do it over here. And the first thing we're gonna do is use this little tool that I made that allows us to ensure that the heat set insert doesn't go down too far, because there's a gap where the strap is gonna go. We don't want the heat set insert to push all the way through to the other side of that. And so we need a little stop block thing. And so I made this little metal tool to slip right in there. And then we're going to use this to prevent us from making any mistakes. And what we're going to do is we're going to start this heat set insert by hand. We're going to plug it in there. We're going to do both sides real quick. Just there. Look at that. It kind of looks like a face. Look, there's two eyes and a nose and a little antenna. Maybe like a little bug or something. I don't know. But All right, so we're ready to go. We're gonna put this is an M4 heat set insert, so it's nice and strong. It's gonna ensure that everything attaches in a really strong and powerful way. So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. And usually I'll look at this from a diagonal angle because it's really tricky. This is a curved surface. This is actually curved right here, so it's really tricky to get this in straight and level. But I found that over time I was able to figure out a consistent way to do this by hand, and like just I look at it from a diagonal angle, so it gives me a nice perspective when it goes in. The key for this that I found is that really it's best to take our time and go slow. We don't want to force it and shove it in quickly because then we'll get all this nasty plastic spill out that pushes over the edge. We want this to be super nice and clean, so better to go slow. Wow, that's pretty much exactly where we want it. So now we can take a look at this. It's clean. There's no plastic along the rim, but I know it's in there really well. And then on the inside, there's no plastic on the inside either. It's really flush. It's clean. It looks good. It looks exactly what we want to go for here. Now we do the other side next, and then same process, same procedure. We're going to go nice and slow. Nice and slow. There it goes. All right, that's in there. Okay, let's take a look at the finished product. So I'm really happy with how this is looking. It looks like it's very flat and level with the surface, but at the same time, there's no like nasty, push out from plastic. So I know that it's done right. It's done nice and slow and really nice looking. So I think that's going to be a great little piece for our headband. And so yeah, let's do the other one real quick. Using our special handy dandy tool, and we're going to grab some more heat set inserts, some M4s. I started off using M3s, and an M3 heat set insert holds an M3 threaded screw, and it worked fine, but what I found was that sometimes if you over tighten the strap plate, this little heat set insert would start to come loose, and I felt like I wanted to go a little extra on that just to make sure that it was super strong. And so the M4 seemed like it did the trick. I haven't had any issues with the M4 after moving to that. So I'm really confident this will be strong and last for a very long time. Nice and slow. Until it's just right. Look at that. It's a thing of beauty. I also plan to make a little jig with a heat set insert press where I can just go straight down and the jig would hold this in place exactly where it needs to be, and I could just do that. So yeah, that jig will be made at my new workshop. There's a lot of little jigs and tools I want to make, but for now I just want to get the pre-orders out, so I'm just doing this by hand for now, just for the sake of speed. I don't really have a lot of time to do design work and building tools, so I've just gotten really good at this, like just doing it by hand and eyeballing it. But yeah, eventually I will have a jig and some tools where this will be, high quality, but also done consistently and perfect every time, and also able to be done by somebody who, isn't like a trained craftsman, like, who knows exactly how to do this by hand. So yeah, pretty much foolproof. But yeah, that is looking very, very nice. And so you can see that now. Yeah, it's pretty. It's completely flat. I can kind of rub my hand and it should feel like it goes along with the curve. There's no like protruding edges, and that's really how I test it. Like I can just kind of feel it with my finger. It feels very flush and smooth along the curved surface with no sticky edges or anything. And that's what we're going for. So yeah, And now that we have both left and right finished, we're ready to move on to our next step. And so what I do next is I insert the plastic sleeve bearing that goes into the rod slider. So this little piece right here it's actually an incredible piece of technology. It's made by a company called iGus, and they specialize in industrial grade sleeve bearings in different types of plastics. And what that means is a plastic sleeve bearing is just a piece of material that interfaces with another object and is meant to move along that object. And that's really all it is. And iGus makes dozens of these different types of sleeve bearings using different types of plastics and materials depending on the use case and what works best for you. I tested probably 9 or 10 different materials before I finally settled on this particular one. And so the requirements for the sleeve bearing for me personally were it had to be low friction so that it would move along the rod smoothly. It had to be very durable, so high durability, which means it would last for a very long time. It also had to have some flexibility so that we could press on it with a set screw. That was really important. And it also had to be self-lubricating, which means as this moves along the rod, over time, as it breaks down, it releases its own lubrication to make sure that it's really smooth. And so all of those requirements had to be met, and I tested a bunch of sleeve bearings, and and this one fit the bill. And I'm going to talk a little bit more once we start to use it. I'm going to talk more about why this one in particular is amazing and why it fit the bill. So what we're going to do next is we're going to insert it into the rod slider, and I'm going to start this by hand, and then I'm going to finish it up. Ooh. And then I'm going to finish it off on the bench. So I'm going to get it started by hand, and then I'm going to zoom out to show you how I do this. And so once it's started, I'm just going to push it a little more. It's a pretty snug fit. I mean, it's pretty dang tight, but I can insert it. I don't need any tools to insert it, which is really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start it, then I'm going to push it on a hard surface, and it should just pop right in like that. So not a lot of effort, but it's really cool because when you get it in there, you can see how flush it is to the rod slider. It's such a nice, perfect fit. And so, yeah, we're going for that flush fit right there. And we're going to do the other one real quick. So we're going to start this by hand, get this going, and then we're going to finish it off on this edge of the bench. I usually just push it down to make sure it's nice and flush. And there it is. It's very satisfying to push that in and see how nice that is. All right. Now, let's zoom in and we're going to finish off the last step on this piece real quick here. Okay. And so, yeah, the next step is to put another heat set insert so that we can use a set screw to adjust the rod tension. And so we're going to use these really amazing little heat set inserts that are M4 again. So we can use an M4 set screw, which is really strong, but they're very low profile. And that was the key in getting this to work, because I wanted this whole assembly to be really slim and low profile, just as an entire assembly. And so getting these little parts into this design was a huge challenge and required a lot of testing to make sure everything worked right and was durable for the long run. But what we're going to do next, I just dropped that. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this heat set insert going. It's a little tricky there. I'm just going to set it kind of near there. And then we're going to get our iron going here, close to it. And then this one goes in a little quicker than the other one because it's not as burly and thick. It doesn't have to move as much plastic, but yeah, it's pretty quick and easy. So there, we got that one going. And so what happens is now we have a place for our set screw, and the set screw is going to be used to adjust the tension that gets pushed onto the sleeve bearing. So pretty nice. And we're going to go ahead and do the other one. Okay. Yeah, this one goes in fast. So okay. Got it. Beautiful. So I'm really thinking that these parts are looking pretty nice now, and so I'm going to zoom out for the next step here in this operation. And so now that we have our two rod sliders fully assembled and ready to go with the sleeve bearings, the heat set inserts, yeah, now we're ready to insert the metal headband. So here's the metal headband, and before we do this, what I like to do is I like to actually, it comes brushed from the supplier that I use, the manufacturer I use. There's what I would call like an initial brushing after the machining and the tempering and all that. But what I want to do is I want to just check it for just some larger scratches that might still be on the surface. And what I want to do is I want to give it just a final brushing before I install it. And so I'm going to show you how I do that. And it's not going to be, I mean, you're still going to see little hairline scratches and things like that, which are perfectly normal. That's totally fine. I'm going to put some gloves on while I do this. I highly recommend, if you ever work with metal, and especially with brushing, it's going to release little fine metal particles, and you always want to wear protective stuff when you do this. So gloves are an essential, a must. But yeah, so it's going to have little fine scratches, and that's fine. But I just want to make sure that the bigger ones are out, and also just making sure, I kind of like to have all the grain aligned perfectly as well to give it a nice clean look and finishing. So what I do is I take this little green scour pad, and the green one's great. This is actually something you can do at home. So if you own the Dahlia, and over time this naturally just gets scratched, right? You put the headphone down on your desk or your table, maybe you travel with it, bumps into things. Over time this steel piece is going to get a little scratched up, which is fine. Part of the natural patina of the headphone. But if you ever want to refinish this, bring it back to its former glory, this is how you do it. Pretty simple. Just get some gloves, buy one of these green scour pads. You can even use the kitchen ones, but I mean, on Amazon you can just buy these. You know, they're pretty easy to get. Yeah, and just give it a good brushing. The key is to brush it in one direction, so you want to go with the grain, and just nice even strokes. I like to go back and forth and try to keep it as straight as possible. That way the grain on the brushing looks beautiful and gorgeous, and it looks continuous. But yeah, this is what I like to do. I like to brush it, and then I give it a good look just to see if I missed any areas. Okay, there's still some stuff over here I can improve, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's looking very nice now. Wow, that's beautiful. It's not going to look like a Rolex. I mean, you know, we have to be realistic on how we can get this brushing finished. You know, it's a hand brushing. I do have a brush wheel over there I could use to hit it up with the machine, but that's like overkill. We don't really need to do that. I just want to make sure that it's, you know, that it looks nice when you get it, and then, you know, over time you're just going to put some scratches in it. But it's kind of cool, actually. I kind of like some of the stuff like the natural patina and natural aging that happens with metal. So don't go easy on it. You know, wear the Dahlia, live with it, scratch it, bang it. It's all good. And then you can come back later, and if you want to brush it, you can. If you don't, just leave it. Enjoy it. But I think this is looking quite nice at this point. What do you think? I don't see any major, like really deep scratches, maybe just a couple of hairlines, but that's all good. But yeah, that grain on the brushing looks continuous and smooth and nice. Yeah, that looks very nice to me. I think any one of the people that are going to receive this headphone are going to be very happy with how this is looking. So let's call that good. And we're going to now go ahead and install it. So take off our gloves. And all right, let's do this. This is super easy, actually. So before I do this, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some set screws started. So this assembly uses 6 total set screws to hold everything in place. And so we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to start with the outer set screws first. The the two outer ones hold the headband in place, and then the metal one adjusts the rod tension. So we're just gonna, get this started. Okay. I like to just put the set screws in there, get them ready to go, and then we'll do the final adjustment once we get the headband in. Okay. Ooh, that one almost got away from me. All right. I actually like to put a little tension on that rod even before we get started. Let's just do that. Okay. We've got our 6 set screws installed, ready to go. And now let's install the headband. So it's pretty simple to do. There's a little stop block in there in the middle where it kind of catches on this little straight section here. And so we just, it's pretty simple really. Just insert it and we're done. It's pretty simple. And so what I do is on the early versions of this headband, I call them version 1.0, I left a little extra room in here. And so the reason why I did that was because I ordered these headbands and I went through several rounds of samples, tested a bunch of headbands out, different thicknesses, different radiuses on the curve, just to get the clamp perfect. And so we went through several rounds of testing, different materials even, but just different thicknesses matter the most. And I actually, one of the rounds of samples was delayed because of a holiday. So I was not able to get the final production order until literally a week before we started shipping. And so because of that, I wanted to give myself a little extra margin of error here for adjustment potentially in case, the lengths were off. And so that's why there's a little extra space here where you can adjust it. But the way that it's supposed to look is that I pull it out about 2 millimeters or so. And then that should give us the perfect length for the clamp that we need. So in the future versions of this rod slider, I'm going to button that up and close it up so there's no actual adjustment. It's just going to go in and stop where it needs to stop every time, and we'll tighten it up. So yeah, that's going to be just a small little 2 millimeter change on that stop block, which is totally fine. But for now, we're going to have to eyeball this and do this manually, which is good, which is all good. And now we're screwing in the set screws to hold that metal band in place. We don't need to over tighten those because they're just there to press against the metal. It's not the thing that holds the headband in place really, because when you wear the headphone, the natural tension from the headband is also pressing against there. So yeah, we just need to make it snug. I'm just gonna double check to make sure I did that enough. Okay, yeah, just snug really. We don't want to over tighten it, but just enough so that it holds it in place. That looks pretty good so far. So now we're starting to see the headband come together, and the next step is going to be installing the ear cups, which is very exciting. So let's grab a couple of ear cups and do that now. Okay. So remember these from the other night on the build series video where we inserted the drivers? This is what we had before. So now we're going to install these on the headband and set the adjustment tension, okay? And I'm using Stealth Black because I feel like Stealth Black hasn't gotten a lot of love during this build series. And so I'm going to use Stealth Black for this purpose because I feel like it needs a little more attention, and we're going to feature that here. So now the first step we're going to do is insert this rod into the rod slider. And remember that little button screw that we installed on the end of the rod? The reason why we use a button head screw is because it's round and curved, and it makes going into this piece very, very easy because it kind of just finds its way in a very easy way. So it just kind of goes in there. And on the inside of this sleeve bearing, it's actually got a little chamfer as well. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little chamfering on the inside of that sleeve bearing. And so between the chamfering there and the button head screw, this thing just boop, pops right on. There's no, it doesn't catch, it doesn't do anything. It just easily finds its way, which is very, very nice. And so here we go. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on one ear cup at a time, and we are going to tighten this up. And actually what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use an Allen key because it fits a little easier into this space. And actually I give you one of these Allen keys when I ship you the headphone. It's the exact same one I'm using right now. And so you'll see it's a 2.5mm Allen key, and it fits perfectly into here. And what I do is I insert in here, and then to get the angle right, I just wiggle it around until it kind of just drops into the set screw. Then you know that you've got it in there. You want to make sure it's fully seated in here before you start turning, or you could strip that screw, and that could be a bad situation. So we know it's there because look, it's stuck there, so that's good. And we're gonna just give it some tension until, and this is what I do with every headphone before I ship it. I start to break this sleeve bearing in beforehand, because I don't want to ship it to you where it's completely fresh and new and hasn't been broken in yet. It's important for me to start that process now, and then over time it'll break in even further. But I'm just gonna start that process. This is how I do it. So I give it a little bit of tension, not too much, because it's brand new, and we want the sleeve bearing to start to break down and release its lubrication. And so that's what we're doing right now. I'm twisting it while I move it up and down, because that sleeve bearing is brand new, and I want to make sure that we break it in slowly and not all at once. And so I'm breaking the sleeve bearing down, and it's releasing lubrication, and it's actually becoming very smooth on the adjustment already. So that's what we want to see. We want to see an adjustment that's very smooth and fluid and doesn't catch, or, yeah, we want that smooth. Okay, now what I'm going to do next is, now that I know that it's starting to break down, I'm just going to give it a little more tension. Just a tiny turn. You don't need much. It's such a small turn. Okay, and now I'm feeling even more tension here, so that's good. And I'm going to continue to break in that sleeve bearing by twisting while it goes up, and then pushing it straight down. Twisting while it goes up, and then push straight down. And that's what I do for each side. Now I'm going to do this one more time. Okay, one more time. Just a tiny turn, tiny adjustment. Okay, now I'm feeling more tension. And that's starting to get pretty smooth. The sleeve bearing will continue to break down and settle in after you get the headphone for a few weeks probably. And so I recommend actually adjusting this once, maybe twice, but once that sleeve bearing breaks down and settles in, and breaks in and settles in, you shouldn't have to adjust it after that. Like, it should just hold its friction for the life of the headphone. You shouldn't have to continue to play with this too often. It's just in the beginning, it takes a little bit of time, but yeah. And so that looks pretty good. I'm just gonna test it real quick, just by holding this side to side, and yeah, it feels pretty good. Maybe a little tighter. Okay, just a little more tension. Okay, that feels nice for now. And then what I'm going to do is, now that I know the right side is actually fitted to this specific ear cup and it's good, I'm going to put this aside for now, and then I'm going to work on the left. And so now I do the same process. It's the exact same thing for the left side. Okay. All right. So we're just going to go ahead and do this. Wow, it's already feeling pretty good. A little more tension. I'm just going to turn, push, turn, push, turn, and push. Every time I do this, it gets a little smoother each time. That's how I know that the sleeve bearing is breaking down nicely. because it's just getting a little smoother each time. Okay. All right, we're going to do a little more tension. Okay. That's feeling pretty nice. And let's just check it real quick to see how it feels. That feels pretty good. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to bring the right ear cup back, and we're going to install both at the same time, just to compare them, because we want them to be identical. We don't want them to be, we don't want the tension on one side to be stronger than the other. We want them to be exactly the same. And so we're going to bring the other one in just to see where we're at. And wow, they literally both feel identical, which is pretty awesome. I mean, I would say that when you pick the headphone up, and so there's a bunch of reasons why I chose this system, because I didn't want the ear cups to be, even though they do rotate fully 360 degrees, I didn't want them to be flopping around. I didn't want the ear, when you pick up the headphone, I didn't want the ear cups to just be like free spinning and flopping around, because that really annoys me. So I wanted them to have some friction. And so that's why we're using the sleeve bearing, so that when you put the headphone down and then you pick it up, you can hold it with one hand. It's not going to flop around on you. It's just, it's nicer to hold. It holds its shape really well, but it also has some friction there to keep that, but also it needs to be loose enough where when you put it on your head, it's really comfortable. So that's the key there. And so I think we're ready now to put the strap on. So I'm going to give it, before I send it to you, what I do is I actually give it one final turn. And what that does is it actually makes it tighter than you probably want it, but I know that after about a week, that's going to loosen up quite a bit. So I do actually ship it to you with probably too much tension. But when you first get the headphone, all you want to do is you just want to do what I do, just a few times to get it a little looser. And then I would say in about 1 to 2 weeks, it'll loosen up to the point where it'll be very, very comfortable. It's going to feel a little rigid and stiff at first, but that's normal. That's intentional, because I want to send it to you in a place where I know it's going to break in and then settle into that right level. Okay, so I wish I could actually wear all of them for a few weeks and break them in for you. That would be amazing. But unfortunately, I don't have that kind of time. But I would do it if I could. Yeah, so I'm just going to add a little more tension, knowing that in a couple of weeks, it will be ready to go. So that's perfect. Now, it's starting to look like a headphone. Look at that. The final step is to install the brand new Buffalo strap. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about this strap. I'm going to set this aside for a second. And so this strap was designed by myself and this guy named Laurent, who owns a company in Montreal called Understated Straps. And he is an incredibly talented leather worker who makes straps for a lot of headphones, not just mine. But I stumbled upon his straps when looking for something for my Odyssey and thought, wow, this is a beautiful strap. I like the way this is made. And so I talked to him about doing a custom strap for the Dahlia, and he agreed to work with me. So a few things about the strap. It's buffalo leather, which means it's going to be much more durable over the long haul than cow leather. Buffalo leather doesn't really stretch. And for me, that was really important. I didn't want you to get the Dahlia with a cow leather strap, and then over time the strap stretches out and then starts to hit up on the thing, and then it just, yeah, you'll need to replace it after a year. I didn't like that. I want something durable. So we chose buffalo because it's way more durable than cow leather. It doesn't stretch over time. And the other thing is that buffalo actually is a nice soft leather strap, so that it's not like rigid and firm like a cow leather strap where it needs to be broken in. This is actually it will come to you pretty soft already. And when you feel it, you'll think, wow, this is nice. Like, this doesn't need to be broken in that much. It's just going to be really comfortable right off the bat. So it's going to have almost like a padded feel. The edges have been burnished and painted black, which is a very nice finishing here. And we created a custom die for the logo, and he uses a heat press to press the logo in there so that we get a nice little branding opportunity there. It's really nice. It's subtle, but very, very well done. So thank you, Laurent, so much for making me these amazing straps, and I can't wait for you to get this with your Dahlia. It should be the first and last strap you need. I don't expect you to have to buy replacement straps unless you want to, or like maybe you buy a used Dahlia from the secondary market and you're like, oh man, I don't want that other person's buffalo on my head, so I'll buy a new one. So I get that. So these are available in the shop if you do want to buy one, but in terms of reliability, durability, all that, it should last for the life of the headphone. This is a very nice strap. And the way we installed this is that remember these strap plates that we lightly touched up on earlier? We're gonna install these strap plates first on the strap. And the way we do that is we know that the logo is facing up and to the right, and we're gonna take the right strap plate and we're gonna align it with the holes in the strap. And it should just align perfectly there. And we're gonna use some M4 screws to secure that strap plate to the strap. And I'm gonna go ahead and start this here with my little screwdriver. Okay, just like that. It goes in quite tight because the hole for this screw is actually smaller than the screw itself. And I did that kind of intentionally because I didn't want the strap to wiggle around in the strap plate. I wanted it to be a very, very snug fit. And as a result, the screw actually has to kind of cut into the leather hole a little bit in order to get through there. And so getting this is not an easy task, but once we get started, it goes in pretty easily. But yeah, so that's what it looks like on the other side. So yeah, we'll do the other one. Sometimes it's a little tricky, so I'll use maybe like my bench to get it started. Sometimes it's easier. Okay, there we go. That one slipped. All right. The other screwdriver, I usually use the other screwdriver for this because it's a little easier. So we're just going to swap over there, and yeah, this is going to make our life a lot easier here. Okay, actually I already got that one in. This is good to go. One really awesome detail that Laurent does with his straps is that he actually thins out the ends of the strap so that they fit into the strap plate, and I don't need to have like a bulky ass strap plate right here. So that's a really sweet detail that he worked out with me. So the strap's pretty thick. It's like, I don't know what the thickness is. It's something like 5 millimeters or some crazy thing like that. But at the ends, it goes all the way down to 2.5 millimeters. So I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but it starts off thick here. It's fairly thick all the way through, but then at the very end, it gets thinned down all the way to 2.5 millimeters so that it fits perfectly on this strap plate and doesn't require us to have a really bulky assembly to house that strap end. So thank you, Laurent, for that detail. So nice and so cool. He uses a special process to do that too. I'm just impressed with the work that he does. It's very impressive. For the early prototypes of the Dahlia, I made my own leather head strap, just cutting it with a laser and burnishing it myself, and I brought that prototype over to a bunch of people's houses and events and stuff, and people actually liked that strap. It was pretty comfortable. It was a cow leather. I used Crazy Horse to make it, and it was okay, but I just need something a lot nicer for the production units, and that's when I started talking to Laurent. I was like, dude, I need something really sweet for this headphone. Can you help me out, man? And he was super excited. I think we stayed up all night early in the early days. We were sending each other messages at like 1 or 2 a.m. And that was my time. And he's in Montreal, so I know he was up even later. And we were just so pumped about making this strap. And we got it nailed down in a couple days. And he sent me some samples. And literally the sample just worked. It was like perfect. Size, everything. It's just so nice. I'm like, dang, we just nailed it. One round of samples and then on to production. Let's do this. All right, let me just almost finished with the left strap plate. So much easier with this nice screwdriver. Dang. Okay, we're good. So now we have the left strap plate and the right strap plate installed, and they're not going anywhere because these screws have get a nice bite into that leather, so we're going to be good to go. This is how we like to see it. Ready to install. Here, let me grab one of those other headbands that I made. Maybe you're curious to see what those look like. It's been a while since I've looked at these. Oh dang, I found some really old ones. This is sweet. All right, we're gonna set the really nice one aside for a second and take a look at these. Go for a walk down memory lane. So this is the super early prototype of the Dahlia, and I made these headbands. If you go to my Instagram, you'll actually see old prototype Dahlias with this headband. And I thought, you know, keep it simple, put some ventilation in there. You know, it's made with, you know, a nice crazy horse leather. It's not bad, actually. I engraved it with a laser. Pretty nice. And I have some black ones and I have some brown ones. And yeah, they're soft. They were actually really comfortable too, to be honest. But it was funny because I do remember them stretching a little bit, which is kind of goofy. And I hadn't even really put that many hours on those prototypes either, but they were already starting to stretch. So I was like, dang. But yeah, I made these on the laser. And then I finished them with a little bit of mink oil paste to give them a nice smooth textured feel. And, you know, they served their purpose for a while. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to level these up. So then I wanted to make a wider strap that had a little more embellishment on it. So then I went from this to these things, these little rock star straps here. They were wider and had a more interesting ventilation pattern, which I thought was kind of cool. Gave it a little more rock star look, a little more comfortable because they were wider. And also this ventilation cutout actually made them a little more comfortable and soft too, because we get a little more flex. So that was a version 2 of the prototype strap that I made. And then you can see that little engraved logo I did there. Kind of resembles what Laurent and I did. I did this strap, which was a total fail. This thing was garbage. I thought, oh, let's just do a solid leather one and just do a bunch of logos engraved on there. It looks kind of fancy. It kind of reminds me of something you'd see at like a Louis Vuitton store or something, you know? But it was very uncomfortable because it had it didn't have enough flex here. It wasn't soft enough, so it just felt rigid and yeah, it was just not great. But, you know, I thought maybe I could get a little designy, put a little Gucci on there, but yeah, it didn't work out. So yeah. There we go. So I just wanted to show you some of the funny stuff with some straps I did, and then let's go back to Laurent strap because that's where it's at. Okay, so let's bring the headphone back, and also our prepared straps ready to be installed. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the left side, and pretty easy to do is I just curl it first, get it in there. And then I kind of line up the strap plates a little bit at first until they're pretty close to where they need to be. And then I just do one side at a time. And I'm just going to use the same screwdriver here. Now, when you tighten the strap plate, you don't want to over tighten it because that's the temptation. All you want to do is you want to do a couple of turns until it's snug. And you know it's done because the gap between the strap plate and the rod slider just closes up. I'm going to zoom in just so you can get a better view of that. Okay, so this one is already good to go. I only turned it a few turns, but I'm going to go to the other side and you can see what I'm talking about. So there's a little gap there, and you just want to turn it to the point where that gap closes. You don't want to over tighten it. So it just takes a couple of turns, literally, just maybe 4 turns, 4.5 turns, like that. And then you'll see the gap's gone. And that's how you know it's done. Just snug. Yeah, because like this strap plate, like the strap isn't really secured with pressure. It's just hanging in there off these 2 screws. And so it doesn't need to be crazy tight. Let me show you again with this one. Like it's just a couple of turns. And then that gap closes like this. 1, 2, 3. That only took 3 turns. Boom, look at that. No gap, it's good to go. Just snug. And last one. So let's do it again. There's 1, 2, 3. So 3 turns, 3.5 maybe. And that gap's gone. It's good. It's perfect. So pretty easy to get the strap on there. And now that the strap is installed, what you want to see is the strap will be really close. Let me zoom out and I'll show you what that's supposed to look like. Okay, so after the strap is installed, what you want to see is you want to see that the leather is actually really close to this headband, almost touching. And that's fine. That's actually by design, because when you think like, oh man, that's really close to the metal, I don't think that's a good idea. Like that's going to rub on there and it's going to ruin the leather and that's bad. But actually what you want to see is the way it was designed is when you pull the headphone apart, you'll see that the leather strap moves away from the metal band. Okay, you'll see it. See how it's moving away from the metal band? So as you wear it on your head, that strap pulls away. But also what you want to see is that when you pull the headphone apart to wear it on your head, you want the curvature of that leather strap to be very round as you pull it apart. You still want to maintain that curved radius with the leather strap, because the more curved that is, the more comfortable it's going to be on your head, the more contact it's going to have with your head. Okay, and in order to get the right radius for the leather strap after it's pulled out, when it's in its resting position, it actually has to be pretty close to the metal headband in order for that to work. If it was too short, if this leather piece was too short and like far away from the headband, what you'd find is that when you pull it apart, the leather is going to be really flat. And that's bad when you pull it apart and wear it. Like if you had a flat headband like that and you put it on your head, you would just get a hot spot in the middle. Like literally it just feel like very uncomfortable, because all you would feel is the middle and you would get a hot spot. It'd be super uncomfortable. And so, yeah, that's bad. And so what you want to have is you want to have a pretty long strap that maintains a very nice radius even after it's pulled apart. And that's what this is. That's what you should see. You should see that. Okay. And so, yeah, that's the headband. It's looking very nice. And there's that stealth black again. Pretty cool. Pretty sexy, I would say. Look at that. And here it is, all assembled and ready to be tested and measured. That's the Dahlia. Wow. I like to put it on my head real quick just to give it a quick head test before I put it in the box, get it ready for testing. So just to make sure. Yeah, that feels great. That's perfect. Honestly, that's super comfy even just before it gets broken in. But when you get the headphone, depending on your head size, everyone's head's different, obviously. So yeah, you're gonna have to adjust it to get the ear cups the right way. But then if you watch my getting started video, you'll see a bunch of information on how to fit it properly on your head, how to wear it. So that's all in the getting started video. But I'll say, once you get the headphone, give it a couple weeks, because the ear pads are still pretty stiff. The clamp is still, it's still there. The rods are still stiff. All that stuff has to break in, and it takes about 2-3 weeks to have that stuff all relax and break in. But once it does, I will tell you, this headphone is going to be very, very comfortable. It'll be one of the most comfortable headphones you have ever owned. That's like a guarantee for me, I promise you. If it's not, send me a message and we'll fix it. We'll make sure we figure out what's going on, because it should be ridiculously comfortable. Okay, so yeah, that's it. That's the whole headphone, and that's the headband assembly ready to go. Thanks so much for joining me on another build series video for the HFA Dahlia. We're getting really close to the end here. We have a fully assembled headphone ready to be tested, measured, and then we're gonna clean it up and we're gonna package it and ship it to someone who was so kind enough to support HFA in the pre-order. And I'm excited to get this headphone to you because I'm sure you're gonna love it. It's pretty cool looking. I'm excited to test it and hear it too, because I think it'll be a really sweet headphone for you. And yeah, so thanks so much for watching this video. We're getting really close. There's only one more video left in the build series where we're gonna spend some time cleaning it, testing it, and packaging it up. And I'm gonna show you what you get in the box when you get the Dahlia. But yeah, that's gonna be it for the build series. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you guys had an amazing Thanksgiving with your family and had a nice break from work. There's also some Black Friday deals on my website if you are interested in picking up a headphone cable for your Sennheisers or an extra cable for your Dahlia maybe. I think there's a couple of interconnects there too, so yeah, check that out. Some good deals there. Yeah, and have a great rest of the evening. We're still on target to shipping the rest of the pre-orders out tomorrow, Saturday, so that's super exciting. I'm so glad that we were able to get the pre-orders out in November. So if you're still waiting, that is coming very soon. And if you have any questions, comments, hit me up in the comment section of this video. Happy to answer them. And I will see you guys soon.